All right. Hey y'all. Welcome to a new video. So, I made a mistake. I made a really dumb decision. The spring Sephora savings event recently happened, and I just picked up a series of product after product after product that did not work for me. And I will touch on those more in my savings event recap, but I want to talk about a specific product that I bought because been I had been drooling, I had been coveting, I had been swatching in store, like all of the things, and I could not get it dislodged from my brain. So I bought it. And it arrived a few days ago, and the minute I sat down to use it yesterday, I immediately realized that this was not the palette that I wanted it to be. I am talking about the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. So upon first blush, this looks like a really beautiful rosy toned neutral palette. But if you already have cool skin, these tones come off so dark. They come off black based almost. All of the shimmers, with the exception of this one and this one, are brown. So unless you're going for a brown smoky eye, there really isn't a lot you can do with it. I was drawn in by Natasha Denona's formula. I actually really like her eyeshadow formula. You have to know how to use it. You have to be a little careful, but if you know what you're doing, you can get a gorgeous look in very little time. I also love that the shadows can be depotted. This is one of the midi palettes, which I think might be a different formula than her larger palettes, but just the color story does not work for what I need it to be. And yesterday, as I was trying to figure out what is going on here, why doesn't this look right? Why can't I figure this out? I realized that I already had the ideal nude palette for myself, and is this. This is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. So if we look at these two palettes side by side, let's do that. You can see that Natasha Denona is, it's larger, but it's so much more brown. Whereas the Mario has peach tones, beige tones, even blue, purple undertones. There's a lot more variety between warm and cool with the Ethereal Eyes. Whereas with Natasha Denona, I feel like it's all cool toned. It's all cool toned. And it just makes me really sad because that means I'm going to return it. I have swatched this in store numerous times. But the problem is when you go to swatch a palette, so many other people have dug their fingers into it that the colors, the shades, the formulas, they're not going to perform the same way that they are when they're fresh and new out of the box. So why did I initially want this palette? The color story. The color story, the depotability, the size, like it is a good size for travel. We're always talking about makeup products being travel friendly. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that concept, but it would be very user friendly for travel because it's a good size. And even if I only wanted to take a handful, I could pop them out. It's got a good size mirror. It does stay open on its own, which we love, and it opens all the way. So there are a lot of things to look at this palette and be like, yeah, no, that seems like a good purchase. But for me, it just isn't. It isn't. It doesn't have enough variety between warm and cool to really create a solid, cohesive eye look. I tend to take warmer tones up to bring my brow bone forward, and that gives my eyes a little bit of shadow. The only tones in this palette that I had to do that with are the peach up here, this peach, and then there's this rosy tone under here. And that's it. Like everything else is brown and taupe and cool toned. We have several matte taupes. So you've got this one and this one. They're exactly the same. They are exactly the same. And I am just bamboozled by this palette. And I'm frustrated because this was expensive. And I will be returning it and getting my money back. But it's just frustrating when you want and yearn and have this like impulse. And that was the long game of it, was I had an impulse to buy this palette. I created a dupe palette out of my own single eyeshadows, and that still didn't quell the desire to have it in my hands. And now that I have it, I am so disappointed. I did not go through my usual pre-purchasing checks about, do I have something like this? Do I even want this? Or am I just being brought in by the marketing, the brand name, the color story, the fact that I know that I like the formula? It feels like I've been gaslighting myself. Of all of the products that I purchased during the Sephora sale, and I've returned a fair amount, this is the one that really kind of sticks in my craw. This is going to be a lesson learned that I have to take forward into other purchasing decisions. Asking myself, do I really need this? Or am I being drawn in by the marketing? Am I being drawn in by the displays in Sephora that show all of these beautiful palettes side by side? And there's something about Natasha Denona palettes that still gets me, and I don't know why. I don't, but I need to figure that out and make smarter decisions going forward. I was not using my shopping with intent philosophy. Instead, I was shopping with my heart. I was shopping with my impulsive streaks. I do have very bad impulse control, and I know that. But nonetheless, I let this palette take hold and just grab onto me and be like, no, this is the palette that you want. So as I've talked about, the I Need a Nude palette is very cool toned, whereas Makeup by Mario, which is a smaller, easier to use, I think this is just such a better color story. The shimmers in this are really easy to use. The mattes, they have staying power, they have tenacity, they don't fade. And I already had this in my collection, but I didn't realize how much better off I am using this palette than I am using the Natasha Denona. So I have these warmer tones. I have beiges, I have some peach. I have like a downright pinky mauve, which is perfect. That is what I want when I'm using this palette to put over my brow bone. I've got some nice cool tones. I've got some beautiful bedroom eyes browns. And then I've got some of these crazy shimmers, which are so much fun. And they're not all brown. Let's talk about some of the shimmers in this palette. So here we have Delilah, we have Ella, Filigree. So that's 3 of these shadows. They're different tones, they're different shades. But they are all brown. What am I supposed to do with these? How am I supposed to create a cohesive look when the only options I have for my lid color are brown? Unless I want to go for an all matte eye. Let's swatch these two taupes because I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know if it's coming off on camera. Those look like the same color. They look like the same color. Why? Why do we need two of the same taupe? One of those could have been rosier. One of them could have been different. It could have been different. And I cannot. I cannot. I can't with this. I think part of it is that I used to have a major problem with eyeshadow palettes. I loved eyeshadow palettes. And if you haven't seen my video on breaking my compulsive shopping addiction, then I will link that like down below. I haven't had a new palette in a long time. I think the last time I bought a new palette was maybe this or the Pat McGrath 5-pan. This is my version of the I Need a Nude palette. These are the rosy tones that I like, that I know work on me. I can do an easy eye look with this in 5 minutes. So how do I prevent myself from getting lured in by stuff like this? You know, I'm usually pretty good at filtering out the stuff that I don't need or want or have a use for. Like, I really didn't need this palette. If I wanted a color story like this, I built one from my singles, literally. But I walked in and I touched the shade Muse and it just, oh, it sparkled and it was so pretty. I have something like that in a single that I depotted from a Kaja trio. I don't need it. I'm going to film a video later on, probably later today, building a dupe palette off of this palette and using that, but making it more cohesive for me. I'm just frustrated. So in the future, moving forward, when I see something that tickles my pickle, I need to really look at it from a standpoint that allows me to be critical, that allows me to truly look at something and examine whether it is going to add something to my life and to my collection. Because an eyeshadow palette is not going to change your life. It may change the way you use your makeup and the way that you think about your makeup, but it's not going to instantly make you a better person. It's not going to give you more influence, more money, more happiness. It's just going to be a thing that you open and use. And if that brings you joy and that makes you happy, go for it. But don't put yourself at financial risk. Don't put yourself into financial jeopardy over an eyeshadow palette, especially not this color story, because it is just poo-poo brown. It is brown, and I am not the target customer for this. I thought I was. I thought this was going to be a great palette for me. It's not. And that makes me frustrated with myself for not seeing that sooner. Frustrated with my overall lack of seeing the forest for the trees and instead just wanting this palette. I got it and I was like, I know that this is similar to stuff that I already have, but doesn't that mean I'm just going to reach for it and use it more? Doesn't that mean it's going to really channel the mental energy that it takes to assemble a palette like this from my singles? And it's not. If anything, it adds more frustration and more stress. It adds more stress to the situation, and I just don't need it. I don't need it, and I am walking away from it. I am going to take it back and I'm going to learn a lesson. I'm going to learn from this mistake and from this experience. In the meantime, I will enjoy my Makeup by Mario palette because this is glorious. This is a gorgeous palette that had people screaming for it to be brought back for a reason, because it is so special. And it's not like anything we've seen before for a nude palette. This is the difference. One of them is made for everyday people, and I think the other one is possibly made for makeup artists or just Natasha Denona's own sensibilities. Either way, it's not for me. I like the formula. The formula is beautiful. The shadows are smooth, they're creamy, they blend easily, they pick up on a brush nicely, but the color story, this dark brown, heavy color story, just doesn't work. I mean, the darkest shade in the palette is this dark brown, and that's it. You've got a dark brown, you've got two taupes, you've got a cream, a peach, another dark brown, and then this like rosy peach. Those are your mattes. And I am sure that somebody who is perhaps a professional makeup artist could make this work. I can't. And it is not necessarily marketed as a makeup artist palette. It is marketed to the everyday consumer. And when a color story is so constricted, that just makes it all that more frustrating. It makes it frustrating for the everyday consumer. And I'm just kind of done. I'm just kind of done with it. So that was my mistake. That was my gaslighting myself into believing that this palette was going to supplement for something that I really wanted, needed, / already had, but wanted a simpler version of. And that was bull honky. It was wrong. I was wrong. And I have learned my lesson, costly as it may be, but I don't really have a regret because it did teach me a really valuable lesson. You know, I have regrets on things that I didn't learn anything from. This palette taught me a lot, and I will forever be grateful for that, but I don't think I am going to swoon over Natasha Denona's next nude palette, because it's not nude, it's brown smoky eye palette. That's basically it. And I am just fed up. That will do it for today's rambly video. I hope you all enjoyed. To my new subscribers, welcome. To my current subscribers, thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and attention and spending this time with me. I hope you are taking care of yourself so you can take care of each other. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye, friends. Oh, for crying in the toilet. Oh my goodness. Okay.